Welcome to the Heart for God podcast. With many years of experience pastoring and helping to start churches, Dr. Jim Townsley has some practical and biblical advice that can be a great help to you and your ministry. On this podcast, Dr. Townsley and other guests with special expertise cover a variety of topics. His goal is to help you lead your church to be a healthy, strong, and balanced ministry, and for your family to be happy, healthy, and living for the Lord.
Today I'll be talking about something that I've been observing for several months, a few years, I guess. But there is a changing of the guard. There were, during my generation, they call it the baby boom generation, many pastors that entered the ministry, and many of them very young. But they are retiring, they're getting older, they're dying, and so there has to be someone to take their place. And I've mentioned many times there aren't enough to replace all of them. There aren't enough young people surrendering to ministry, and it's taken them longer to get ready. In this past year, I hope not an exception, but in this past year, we have 5 new pastors that are in their 30s and 40s take over churches that have been started years ago. I mean, that's a great sign. That's a wonderful thing. And so I'm happy to see that, and I'm hoping that continues. It seems like that age, 35 to 45, that it's taking longer for young men to be ready, which is okay, but that's a delayed thing, I guess. So there are some promising young men that I think are going to do a great job, and they're beyond our state. There are others that I'm aware of that are filling the pulpit now of those pastors that are stepping down and replacing them. And so I think we need more of that, and I hope we see it. But that there's still many issues of some of these young men going a different direction, changing the church. This is entirely my opinion, but if someone is really going to change the philosophy, in essence, the direction of a church and make a major change, then you should go start a church. Don't take over and change something that someone has spent their life to develop and establish. I think it is dishonest, beyond unethical. And if a church was non-Calvinistic, you want to change it to Calvinistic, go change something else, or start something yourself and build it. So don't go in and say, well, we're going to go to contemporary music. We're going to change our Bible. When historically that has been the position of that church, that is dishonest. It is beyond unethical, as I said already. But that seems like that's not what happens. Our young guys will come in and they think, oh, I'll do this, I'll go in that direction. And they fail to realize the sacrifice of the former pastor or pastors, the commitment of the people. I mean, it's really a subtle and dishonest thing to do that. And so if you're going to do it, go start your own. Build your own. It's not easy to build something. You know, I pastored for 50 years. It's not easy. It's a lifelong commitment and many long hours, and, you know, there's sacrifices that are made, though there are many blessings. But don't come in and change what has been established through long-term sacrifice. So I have a couple suggestions that hopefully we'll see more young men like this coming that'll keep the reins in the same direction and go in the same direction as what the church was established to do. But that doesn't mean you can't be creative, and you don't have to mimic the former pastor, and you don't have to live up to his standard or down to his standard. You're your own person, and you'll have things to offer. But it is so critical because a church has to stay young. And for a church to stay young, you really need young people. And if not the pastor, you need staff that are younger or leaders that are younger. There have to be youth to attract youth. It's real hard to get youth when you don't have any. Unfortunately, that's one of the things that's happening is churches are getting older and they don't have youth. And so that's part of the reason the pastor ages. The people generally will be similar to the age of the pastor. So you have to either have leaders or staff that are younger to help bring in younger people and appeal to younger people. And then sometimes I think until you sit in that seat, until you are the pastor, you really can't possibly know all the things that are challenging, that weigh on your shoulders when you take over a church. It's easy to be an armchair quarterback. You sit back and say, oh, I would have done this, or I will change that. Or, I know there are people that try to start a church and failed, and then they want to go out and tell people how to do it. Why not somebody who's done it go out and tell you how to do it? But sometimes people think, oh, I could do better, I could change this. I would caution you, and I think this will help you, if you go to the former pastor or go to the leaders of the church or other pastors that have a lot of experience, men who you respect, and run things by them. Tell them, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. I think this is something I'd like to try, or this is a new idea. Run it by them and get their opinion. You might be surprised. They might think, I wish I'd thought of that. Or I've wanted to do that. I'm glad you're doing it. Or have you thought about the consequences of doing it? Every time you start a ministry, that it seems like often we don't think about the long term. What will it be like in 20 years? Are we willing to make a commitment to this event or activity or ministry long term? When you start a bus ministry, which we've always had a bus ministry, that's a pretty big commitment. And you start a children's program, that's a big commitment. And there are a lot of things like that. Christian school, that's a big commitment. Do you realize what it will cost you, the effort, the work, and are you willing to put that into it? And I think sometimes if you seek advice from an older pastor, he's been there, done that, and he can help you realize what you're going to be facing. And that may not stop you from doing it, but it may give you a better context of what you should do. So I think it's very, very wise to seek his advice. And just like in the Bible, seeking the advice of the young men over the older men usually doesn't turn out very well. And I think that you can be your own person. You can bring your ideas, your energy, your vision, and still maintain the basic tenets of what that church was built upon. And so the changing of the guard is going to bring new things, new ideas. And I'm, of course, looking at it from a different viewpoint than a young guy coming in. I'm looking back. And, I see things a little more cautiously than I used to. But I have to remember when I was young, I did a lot of dumb things. Things I wish I hadn't done or tried. But there are a few things that I'm grateful I did. First of all, I was very young, and we just went out by faith. We didn't have support. We went. I didn't wait for several years. We went and we did it. I'm grateful that we did. I'm grateful where we came to. It's such a great mission field. In my opinion, the neediest part of our country, when you look at the population and the lack of the gospel, I'm glad I went to a place like that. I'm glad I invested my young years in serving the Lord. But there, along with youth, comes some shortcomings. And the one thing that I did learn, or I'm grateful I did, is I was always looking for help, answers, suggestions. Even people in the community were a help, because I'm at out of my element. Southern Indiana and the farm are not the same as being in a suburban Connecticut, New England area. And so I would visit people whom I knew really understood the town, the community, and I would ask them questions about the area and about what you should do. One of the first times this happened, we were getting ready to start the first service, and this was new to me. The laws and regulations and zoning was not something I was used to. We didn't have any where I grew up. But I made these little sandwich signs, and my wife and I made them, and we were going to put them out. And someone said, "Oh, there's a sign ordinance. You just can't put anything out." And so I questioned someone from the community, an old-timer, and he said, "Well, that's true." He said, "However, everybody does it. And the way this works is you do it, and if somebody says you can't do it, then you say, 'I'm sorry, I won't do it again.'" So ask forgiveness rather than permission sometimes is how community works. A friend of mine who started a church nearby, he's from Connecticut originally, but he wanted to be so careful to please the town and follow their guidelines, let them know that I'm really cautious about what I'm doing. I want to make sure we dot our I's, cross our T's. So he went to them, and he wanted to use, there was a garage attached to the house, and he wanted to use that and have a Sunday school class in it. And the zoning enforcement officer said, "Had you not come to me," he said, "you could have just done it. But since you came, I can't give you approval to do it." So you see, there is the local cultural issues that how do things really work and what makes things work. Then I remember another church, they decided they're going to have a Christian school and they're going to put it in their church building. Well, they didn't realize when that building was built, a commitment was made that there would never be a school, an educational unit in it. And they had already started dividing things up, putting up partitions. And the town came in and shut them down. And they got on their high horse. They said, "We're going to fight the town. We'll fight them in the street. We'll be on the town green." You can never win against the town. These people are really in the place of God. And so you're better to learn how to work with them to fight against them. So that really hurt that church, and they had to come up with another plan. But I think asking questions, finding people, how does this really work? You want to know something about raising your family, talk to another preacher who's been in the ministry and raised his children. You want to know how to handle finances, talk to someone that handles their finances. There are many other issues. There are doctrinal issues that come along. Figure out who to talk to, who can help you. Don't just sneakily think, "Well, I'm going to try this. I'll do this. That looks like a good idea." In the multitude of counselors, there's safety. So you can bring your ideas, your energy, your zeal. It's needed. I'm excited to see these young men coming. I want to help them. I want to encourage them. But let's not change who we really are, our historic standards of the Bible, keeping the right music, having high standards of dress and separation. We can hold on to all of those and still have a vision of maybe adding some new things or changing or tweaking some things. So there is a changing of the guard that's taking place all across America. And just this past year, we only have about 35 independent fundamental churches, in our Baptist churches in our state. And 5 of them have new pastors that are in their 30s or 40s, all in 1 year. And there's more that is going to transpire pretty shortly, too. And I may be wrong. It may be 6 or 7 that now that I think about it. But in that transition, I hope young men will seek godly counsel, seek God to help direct you, to give you vision, And I believe we can see great things in the next generation. It's their turn. It's a changing of the guard.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, consider sharing it with a friend. You can also follow at Dr. Townsley on Twitter or on Facebook at Jim Townsley.